All right. Hello, everybody. It's Heather. I am actually at Children's Book World. I miss seeing everybody here with us. And I'm really sorry that Jen and Frank couldn't be in the store, but I'm beyond thrilled that they're joining us virtually tonight. You all are in for a huge treat. We have just been chatting away, and I wish I could have recorded all of that for you. Wow, talk about interesting and delightful people. So I don't want to take too long with introductions, but I do want to tell everybody, if you have questions, please type them in the comment field, because in a little while, we'll be taking some questions and they will have answers. I also want to let you know that Jen is coming by the store tomorrow to sign the stock. So if you have not already ordered a book and you would like one, please don't call the store right now because the phone will ring. But you can certainly go on our website because the books are available online. So like I said, we are thrilled to be celebrating Above the Rim, which is, I'm a little obsessed with this book, I have to say. My dad was a ball player, so I mean, that's definitely part of it. But I have to tell you that the art in this book is beyond. I have so much, well, shall I say, I have so much respect in this book. And the way Jen tells a story, it is always the right word. So a little plug in there for some other things. But again, they're going to tell you all about this book. I am going to disappear and let them take it away. So thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for having us. Thank you so much. Okay, hopefully you see some slides that I put together for tonight. So I'm going to go first. Thank you all for being here. It's a little strange to be in pandemic launch mode. On the other hand, it's delightful to be able to welcome so many of you who are not in the greater Philadelphia area to our book launch. So welcome, and thank you for taking the time out of your days, evenings to join us. We're really excited about this book, excited to share the story. Thank you to Children's Book World for hosting, and thank you to all the people behind this book. I mean, Frank and I will both tell you, painting is a solo act, writing is a solo act, but the creation of a book is a team effort. And even though our names are on the cover, there are agents and art directors and editors and store owners and marketing people and publicists who do a lot of work every day to make this happen. So thanks to all of you out there. Some of them are joining us tonight. My website people, I think, are here from Minnesota. So just delighted and very, very grateful for everything that you all do. So Above the Rim, it's launch day, and we're very, very excited. I have been writing biographies for young people for going on 30 years now. These are some of them. I know some of you may know some of the other titles. And whenever I am interviewed or asked about my process, well, the kids usually ask, how much money do you make? But the overwhelming next most popular question is, how do you choose your topic? So I'm going to talk exclusively about Above the Rim, but these are some of the other examples because the answer that I give is pretty consistent with how this one started. It always starts with something really, really small. And it's something sensory, something I see or witness, something I listen to, or something I read. So, for example, my biography, A Splash of Red, about Horace Pippin, started with seeing one of his paintings in a local magazine. My biography of the playwright August Wilson started by seeing a play at a local theater. I didn't intend to write about him, but at 10 minutes into the play, I was just absolutely captivated. My biography of Louis Braille started when I went to get some cash at my ATM and noticed the Braille on the ATM pad. So it always starts with something small and unexpected. Those of you who know us personally, here in the Bryant house, we follow sports, we play sports, we love sports. So there's a lot around the house that I can read, magazines, we watch sports documentaries, and we're active people. So As I'm doing biographies, in the back of my mind, I'm looking for someone who really made a difference in their sport. I would like to write about an athlete, but I'm just waiting for that right person to present him or herself. So I read a lot of biographies, and I was reading in 2013. So that's 7 years ago. I was reading the autobiography of Julius Erving, Dr. J. And I came across a passage where he's describing how he had played some pickup football game when he was a young man. And he messed up his knee. He had to have his knee surgically repaired.
Wow.
And he was just absolutely devastated because he loved playing any sports, but he particularly loved basketball. Wow. And now he thinks, okay, so wow, I wonder if I will not be able to play basketball. His dream was to play, and all he can do is watch television. Well, he sees Elgin Baylor playing in a game on television. And there's a passage in his autobiography where he says, Elgin Baylor does what is a very new idea to me. There's scoring, putting the ball in the basket, and there's the artistry of how it does. And so basically, young Julius has an epiphany, and it really changes his thinking. It changes his life. And if you know how he ended up as a player, he too was an artist on the court. And it all started when he saw Elgin Baylor playing on television. So that passage got me curious, just like seeing the play at my local theater got me curious about the life of August Wilson. That passage got me curious because I really wanted to write about someone who changed the aesthetic of their game. And so I started finding out more about Elgin Baylor. I found a particularly good audio recording of an interview that he did, and it was at the Library of Congress. And in that interview, he recounted a lot of scenes from his early childhood in segregated Washington, D.C. Frank will tell you more about these luscious paintings that he did. But the fact that he played stickball in the streets, and his older brothers would sneak under the fence and play at the local basketball courts because it was a whites only court, and they were not allowed to play there during the day. And it was locked up at night. So that was really an interesting source for me to find and to hear his voice recounting the early part of his childhood. He didn't have a lot of formal instruction in the game, and I think that really helped his ability to innovate as a player. And then, even though he ended up being probably the best high school player in the entire city, the DC colleges wanted only white players. Now there are indeed some historically Black colleges and universities in and around Washington, DC, but at the time, we're talking about the 50s now, most of them did not have athletic teams. So what is he going to do? He has a friend who plays football at the College of Idaho, which is in Caldwell, Idaho, not far from Boise. And if you can just imagine that, growing up in, Washington, D.C., very urban setting, and going to the College of Idaho, it must have been an enormous emotional risk for him. A very different kind of landscape, different in every way. He must have felt like he, landed in a different planet. But as soon as everyone out there sees him playing basketball, they know he is something special. And he leads his team that year to the college championships in their division. He's very good. He's such a standout. He transfers to a larger university, University of Seattle. I believe they renamed their collegiate court after him, Elgin Baylor. So at this point, I'm gathering information about how did he change the game on the court. But at the same time, right across my office, I made a timeline of all the other things that are happening in the world and in the U.S. in terms of civil rights, women's rights, and historical events. So there was an awful lot going on, and that certainly ties into his own personal narrative. I also spent a couple of days at the Naismith Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts. What a wonderful place. I really recommend it to anyone. Even if you don't think you're a diehard basketball fan, it is just so well done. And there was quite a lot there about the early NBA. The players who first integrated the NBA, including Elgin Baylor. There was an awful lot of footage, film footage, some audio tapes, and visuals, interactive exhibits. And I learned so much there. And it really solidified for me his place in the sport, how he really changed it, the way the game was played, and also what a fantastic athlete and person he was. So the main event towards the about 2/3 of the way through the book, we have Elgin Baylor being drafted first in the 1958 NBA by the Minneapolis Lakers. And the NBA is very small. It's not as popular as baseball. So the players aren't really known, and they travel around together, and he is rejected from hotels and restaurants. And when they get to Charleston, West Virginia on January 16th, 1959, the entire team leaves the hotel because the hotel won't let the Black players stay there. So the coaches and the players say, we're out of here. We're going to go stay where everyone is welcome. But then Elgin and the two other Black players on the team are also turned away from restaurants. It was interesting to me in researching this to see how the 1959, how the headline, which I have there, the Charleston Gazette, how they retold the story and how it was framed in 1959. His teammate, Rod Hundley, was a West Virginia native, and he had sent ahead word that, hey, our team's coming to play. Elgin is fantastic. All his friends and family were going to be there. So he comes to Elgin in the dressing room and sees that he's not getting dressed. And Elgin explains, he said, I want to be treated like a human being. And if I'm not going to suit up. And Rod agreed. He said, that's absolutely the right thing to do. So this was really the first pro boycott that we know of. And it resonates today very, very much so. All you have to do is read the headlines from the last year, really, not only in basketball. And this particular one that I have on the slide is when the Milwaukee Bucks refused to take the floor in their playoff game against the Magic. But other teams, other players from other professional sports have also used boycotting and other forms of protest to highlight the racial discrimination that still exists. So we couldn't have known that when we were writing the book, but it all started with Elgin Baylor. So to sum up here for you, and then I'll let Frank talk a little bit about about his wonderful art, which is just, it's just astonishing. It lifts my words to a whole nother level, and he was certainly the right person to do the art for this book. But the writing. The challenge in writing a picture book for young people about someone who isn't very well known is to pick the right details, and also to leave enough room for Frank to work his magic with the art. So in weaving together the different threads of Elgin Baylor's life, there was the wonderful aesthetic that he brought to the game, the way that he literally changed the way a very horizontal, flat-footed game was played. So the players that we see today, or we had seen like Michael Jordan, or we see LeBron James or Kobe Bryant, they can trace the way that they play the game back to Elgin Baylor. He was really the first one to play above the rim. And then the civil rights events that were the context of his life and his quiet but effective action to demand justice in his own way. So it was just a wonderful story to put together. I learned so much, as I always do when I illustrate or when I research for a book. And just hope that the illustrator loves it as much as I do, and Frank certainly did. So I can take these down now and let Frank expound on his work.
Well, hi. Well, when I received the manuscript, I really enjoyed it because it gave me a chance to break the norm and work in sports. I don't really get a lot of sports projects, and being that I love basketball. Let me see. I have my little basketball hoop here. I can dunk on that. I love basketball, and so I was like, I'm into it. I want it. Then I thought, like, with the first page, I thought it was ironic because it was like stickball, and I grew up. I never played stickball, but I did play baseball. And so while I was painting this, I like to, like, my first page. I like to get it as tight as possible and as neat and clean. And actually, it's supposed to stop right here, and right here. And I just kept it going up because the flow was there. I was like, I'll bump it, I'll just keep it painted. I'll just paint it to the top. But I wanted to make sure I put all the details of the cracks and the ground and all that stuff in there because I wanted it to be the template for the rest of the book. And so I would pay that much attention to the rest of the book. So sometimes when I'm painting, I really like to compete against myself. I say, okay, if I paint this page this good, I got to paint the next page better. I got to do the next page better. And then, then when I get to pages, such as this page, where I'm going to do a little slow thing like I do online. You go slow with it. I get the page going. I go boom, and it's coming back. What I love to do is I get that flow. So it's almost like they're spilling on one side and they can all come out. Nothing came out. But I try to get that flow going. And so it goes into, it makes the child want to go to the next page. And then this page, right here, this was a lot of fun. Because on this page, I was like, well, I don't have any little girls in this book. I have to have a little girl in here. So they're debating whether Tupac or Biggie is the better rapper. I mean, I'm sorry. They're debating to find out who's the best basketball player. And then I have to have the little girl in here. She's debating with her hands up, with her attitude. And then he's going against this little girl. And then you have the little kids. I think it's cute. He's reading his little paper. And then I have the whole. I just love going into all that kind of detail in the book. And so and then I have this page. We have, oh gosh, this one. And I was thinking, how can I make this dramatic as possible? And so I said, okay, I'm going to do it in black and white because that's how they would have seen it back in those times. And then I said, what I'm going to do is I always put the highlight, and it's right on the knowledge. There's all this bigotry going on. He has the basketball. She's going through what she's going through, trying to go integrate the school system. And that's all the things that were going on at that time. And I thought it was, wow, I get a chance not just to paint basketball. I get to paint baseball. I get to paint civil rights, and I get to paint them dunking. And so I'm just like, how could you pass up such a project?
And we're glad you didn't.
Yes. And my work is done, if you can see, most of my illustration is done on illustration board. And I like to get the heavy illustration board, and it's done oil paint. This is oil paint on illustration board. And then that's pretty much, that's how I get started on the books. Yeah. So,
all right, I'm popping back in because we have some questions from some people who are watching. I'm gonna pop these up here so you guys can see them.
Okay.
All right. This is from Cynthia. She says, Jen, what is your interest in basketball? I realize I didn't know you are a sports fan. Are you also an athlete?
I participated in sports all through school, and I continue to move around quite a lot when I'm away from my desk. Yes. I prefer to do them rather than watch them, but I did play basketball in high school. In fact, I think I can't see who's actually on the call, but I think one of my high school basketball teammates is now a children's librarian in Denver, and I believe she's logged on here. So hi, Dodie.
Awesome. Yes, yes, Dodie is here. She is on here.
I understood the game. I love to watch March Madness. I mean, that's really when I also love to watch Pro Ball. I don't follow it as closely. But I'm interested, as I said in the author's note, I really, in my own mind, I really kind of cringe and have to bite my tongue when someone says, are you a creative person, or are you a intellectual, or are you an athlete? I think people are more complex than that. And I always thought of sport as an art as integrated and married and overlapping. So the athletes that I love to watch have brought something to the sport that's a little different, and they're innovative. And so, that was a no-brainer. Once I started to, once I read that passage in the Dr. J autobiography, I was hooked.
All right. Well, and I have to say that when you read the book, I think it's maybe 4 or 5 pages into it, and you're describing how Elgin plays in this really unique way. And I went to Google, and because I will be honest, I've never seen him play. I really didn't know anything about him. Mm-hmm. And you go down a rabbit hole, no pun intended with the rabbit there, but you go down this rabbit hole of just watching him, and it is unbelievable.
Yep.
And did you guys spend like hours just watching old basketball footage?
I spent a lot of time watching basketball footage. I don't know about Frank, but on my the books page on my website, jenbryant.com, if you click on the cover on the homepage, it will take you to the Above the Rim book page. Mm-hmm. And my website folks, who I think are on the call, they were able to upload 5 minutes of Wilt Chamberlain video archive, and you can watch Elgin play. He's astonishing and just a real aerial artist. So, Frank, I don't know, did you watch video tape?
No.
Well, you know what?
I did some research. Yes, I did. I went back and checked out his moves and some of his style. But my work is still stylized. I just captured him in how I paint him. And anyone who knows me, they know that I was a fine art painter before I entered the picture book world. And I had a whole line of lithographs pertaining to basketball and sports. And so most of the pictures were kids dunking and that kind of feel. And so it was like easy to translate that into this book because it was the same kind of that elongated feel. So it was easy to make sure that I can, so I had a lot of experience. And plus, I used to play basketball professional in my backyard.
Okay, so there are a bunch of questions here, kind of similar. I'm going to throw this up. I think you know this author and illustrator, Gene Beretta.
Yes.
I know that you've worked with him, Frank, and Jen, I know that you've had parties here with him as well.
Yep. Yep.
Did the two of you have any discussions during the production of the book?
Not that I remember. Can you, Frank?
I'm not answering anything Gene says. I'm not. My buddy. He knows the answer to that. He writes books. Why would he be asking us? He knows. Gene.
But, for the people who aren't familiar, I mean, with the process, I mean, we really work separately. Frank gets my text, and he retells the story in paint. And it's not like I say, oh, on page 8, I want you to do this. And on page 13, I think you should do this. No, when I see the early layouts of his art, it's all new to me, and it's astonishing and it's wonderful. The only thing that I then have a job, part of my role would be to point out anything that's not accurate, But other than that, No, it's Frank's world, and I'm happy to be in it.
But it's kind of like with I did a book with Gene, and we kind of went back and forth with the book. When someone, yeah, it was that one, and I did another one.
George Washington. Yep. Secret Garden of George Washington Carver.
Besides my wife, I worked with her. He was the only other author. Well, I did something with A-Rod where they kind of gave me some kind of direction, and it's kind of sometimes it's with Gene it's a pain because Gene has no idea what he's doing, and so that's a pain.
I'm not getting in the middle of that. So here's another hard question here. This is from Dodie, your friend.
Hey.
But she's actually asked a question for Frank. She would like to know how you discovered your talent for painting.
Oh, that's a good story.
It was a Bazooka Joe wrapper. I ripped it open and said I read the horoscope on it. And no, what happened? I just grew up painting. I grew up. My mom said, it's weird because I don't recall not drawing. I always, as soon as I could pick up a pencil, I was drawing on my walls in my bedroom, and I might have been like 6 or 7. And it's kind of weird. I still let my kids draw on their walls to the day, But so I just never stopped. I knew I could paint. I started out doing graffiti, and when I did graffiti, you had to color the letters in. And so what happened? I knew my color schemes, and it was kind of weird when I was in the 7th grade, I was in 7th grade. I realized how good I was. Is because they chose me to decorate the Halloween door. I don't know. I'm going way back. You guys are around my age, 80 or 90. All right. So I got to decorate my Halloween door, and I was chosen to be the lead artist for that. And I remember drawing Dracula and all this and that. And they were in like a graveyard, and we colored it in. I had to get a team together, and we colored it. And it was like and we won like first prize. And that was in, believe it or not, Kanakamak. So believe it or not, that's when I knew I can draw, but I just never stopped. I found the enjoyment in it. I drew the way I guess kids play video games, and so I just never stopped.
Wow, amazing. So along those lines, Jen, you get the best illustrators. Dodie says, "What's your secret?"
The illustrators have to choose me too. I mean, the way it works is, I send my text in. I work with an editor. We get it to a place where we think it's ready to go to a prospective illustrator, and it works a little bit differently. Different books, different publishers, but often I don't have much of a say in who illustrates it. The publisher, along with the art director, chooses the illustrator. In this case, though, Abrams was very generous, and they said, do you have a short list of people that you would like to work with on this? And I immediately thought of Frank because I actually had one of his fine art prints called The Pitch. It's hanging in the hallway. If I open my office door, it's right out there. And I just love the dynamic nature of his work and his use of color, his composition. Everything is just wonderful, the movement. And as I said, our whole family is involved in sports. My daughter works with college athletes, and it was just seemed like the perfect match. And I was just ecstatic when he said he was available, because sometimes if you suggest someone, they won't be able to do it just logistically. They're booked several years out. But Frank was available, and Frank works a lot, and he works very hard. And I'm just really lucky that he said yes.
So I'm just curious, because I love the cover's great, and I love the title. Did you come up with the title together? Did you come up with that, Jen? Did you choose the cover art? Did the art director do that? It's a fabulous cover. I mean, it's really great.
So Frank can speak to the art.
The art is weird because with illustrators will tell you when you work on picture books, you have pretty much full liberty in the interiors, but where you really get scripted down is when you start working on covers, because it has to go out to the team. They have to make sure it's marketable. And so that was the only time that I had to go back and forth with sketches and get approval was really what they covered. And so, and now I see what they were doing, the direction they were going with it, and it's like amazing. And so that's the, but I didn't, Above the Rim, I thought that was a cool title. And I thought it was just a great way. I don't think any kid could walk by that and say, wow, I can't have that,
Yeah, it's really fantastic.
Yeah.
Does your art does your art that's in galleries differ much from your art that's in books?
Yes. Oh yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not going to tell you that Jean asked that question. I'm just asking that question.
Well, yes, my art and my studio art, I try to keep separate from my illustration art. Illustration art is done where you have to leave, and it's getting harder and harder for me to do it. But you have to leave space with your illustration. So you have to leave space for the type. So every once in a while you'll have this clear area that wouldn't normally be there if you were in fine art. And then I use this, and then one of the things with my fine art, it's not scripted. I can paint. I swear, when I go to my fine art, it's my vacation time, and I get to do what I feel like doing. I get to get these characters that I've done for the past, like month or 3 months. I get to get them out of my head. So believe it or not, I'm gonna miss out on. I'm working on it. My wife just came out with a book on Halloween, so I'm gonna get to work on that book after Halloween. So I'm gonna be in that nightmare state. Dracula's in December, November. I'm gonna still be talking about, where's the candy corn at?
So right before we jumped on live, we were talking, and Jen, you said something so interesting. You said that you do so many biographies, and you said that you can tell more sometimes from portraits of the people you're writing about than from just reading all of the books and stuff. And I would love you to share that with everybody, because I was just like, my mind was just like, whoa, I just never thought of it that way.
Well, it goes back, I guess, if people know some of my earlier works. I also write historical fiction, and I have a novel that's called Pieces of Georgia that it takes place at the Brandywine River Museum in Chadds Ford. That is also where I discovered that painting by Horace Pippin that ended up many years later being the book A Splash of Red. So I have sort of deep connections to that place. And I was saying before we went live here that I really learn as much from visual artists in reading their biographies, in reading the little signs next to the portraits or the paintings that they do about the process, because I kind of feel in a way that my job as a writer for young people sort of combines visual art. I mean, it has to evoke images, right? If you're going to, I'm not going to tell the artist what to paint, but it has to be evocative of images. But I also pay a lot of attention to sound. So I want to tell the story in the most accurate way that I can, but I want it to be poetic. I love poetry. I started in poetry before I wrote for young people. And in fact, if Jerry and Eileen Spinelli are on the call tonight, they were my early mentors. It was Eileen who saw some of my poetry about Georgia O'Keeffe and said, you should write picture books. And she was so generous. She showed me, I posted on Instagram recently, an early page that she had written on a typewriter and showed me, hey, look how similar your poetry is to picture books. So, but getting back to your question about portrait, I feel that writing a biography is very much like painting a portrait, because if you take a dozen talented painters and you give them someone sitting in a chair and you say paint their portrait, you'll get a dozen very, very different paintings. They're all looking at the same thing. And the same is true for biographers, So if 12 different people wrote about Elgin Baylor, there would be, our book Above the Rim, but then there would be 11 others that take, a different slant, or something else about Elgin Baylor's life really captures them and they emphasize that. So writing and portrait painting is a lot about decisions, and also a lot about what personally moves you in their story, right? So There are always things in a picture book that get left out. One of the things, I'll give you an example, is Elgin Baylor was in the Army Reserves for a while. And it's not in the narrative, but I think it did make it into the timeline in the back. He had to, wherever he was training for the Army Reserves during the week, he had to then get on a plane, if you can imagine that, in the early 60s, and fly to wherever the team was and play. And his, without practicing, without sleep, he still maintained close to his, non-Army average on the court, which is just astonishing if you think about that. But yet, as a picture book author, only so much can fit in the narrative. So that's a scene that isn't in there. So that's what I mean about portrait painting.
Well, you capitalize on that. I can definitely go where you're coming from, because you brought me back to thinking about Van Dyke and how he would put all the detail, and you would see the couple, and then if you study the painting, you'd see the wealth throughout the whole painting. Or you would,
right.
And then I think about when I paint in this style, elongated, I'm thinking about Ernie Barnes and how he would incorporate the beauty of the ghetto in the paintings. And so when I paint, I try to glorify everything that may not be in the disadvantaged communities, and I try to put that into the work as well. And if you read into it, you can see the subliminal messages that are there, and they tell the stories of that it's not coming from wealth, and a lot of progress doesn't come from the top, it comes from the bottom. And so you have to build that up. And I think what you're saying is that you can see that character and see where they are and who they are, and it tells the story. Especially like if you look at, and I'm going to leave it alone after this, Rembrandt, you can see his portraits of himself as he ages. And so, but yeah, I totally get what you're saying with that.
So you just segued into this question quite nicely when you were talking about art. This is from Joe Prince. Frank, who are some of your inspirations in art?
Oh, some of my inspirations. It's so many. I would just go with different movements. I'm highly right now influenced by the pop surreal, pop art, the surreal art. I'm definitely, believe it or not, I love minimalism with Rothko. I love the Ashcan school of artists, and so because it's just so many that any artist that deals with mannerism or deals with surrealism. So of course you gotta know Dali. But I was highly influenced by, and I have to say, Ernie Barnes when I was growing up, because he was who I saw the most. And anyone that knows him will see the images similar to how he paints elongated images. I picked that style up. And Annie Lee, she used to, oh my gosh, Annie Lee would paint these scenes of, it would be I think she lived in Detroit. And unless you went to Detroit, you wouldn't get it. Because I thought she was making this stuff up. If you go to Detroit, it's a lot of mom and pop stores. What happens is they paint their signs, and so if you'd see her, it wouldn't be like the only, so it'd be Leroy Campbell. We'll say Leroy Campbell and shout him out. Leroy Campbell's barbershop, or Charles Bibbs' beauty salon, or something like that. And so what would happen is she would paint those in her pieces, and it was like, because everybody, wow, you go there and you'd actually see those are real stores or establishments. So I was highly influenced by her as well. But anyone that deals with mannerism, surrealism, and pop art, I'm influenced by, especially, and again, one Basquiat.
So a lot of people are actually asking where they can purchase your gallery art, Frank. Is it online, or do they have to come to your house?
You got not at COVID. We're trying to going over here. I have a website. My website is morrisongraphics.com. morrisongraphics.com.
There you go. morrisongraphics.com.
And grab a cup of coffee. You will spend a lot of time looking at Frank's art. It's not a it's everything there is just wonderful. So yeah, I'm lucky.
We popped it up there. So a question from Laurie Clapp. Jen, who are you researching now?
So hi, Laurie Clapp from Florida. I am working on a book, and it will come out from HarperCollins with Patsy Mink. Patsy Mink. And in fact, Lori, I'll bet you knows because Lori is from Hawaii originally. And Patsy Mink was she was the engine behind Title IX. And so the book will come out in 22, the 50th anniversary of the signing into law of Title IX. And it traces her childhood in Hawaii. And she was the first woman of color in Congress. And she championed women's rights and workers' rights and early childhood education. And she was really a force. So interesting to research and talk to. And I've been back and forth a little bit virtually with her daughter, who is also a writer, a government policy writer, and just fascinating. So that'll be out in 22. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. I know you guys can't see all these comments because they're coming so fast and furious, but you are getting so much love from everybody.
Oh, isn't that nice?
So excited about this book, and so are we. And I just want to thank you both for being here. I want to remind everybody that books are available. Books are probably, hopefully, since this is sort of a global audience, available in your local independent bookstore. So we are thrilled if you want to purchase them for us, but please, if you have a local independent bookstore, support them now more than ever. If you want them here for you tomorrow, you need to support them today. So, but of course, if you don't have one, we're happy to help. But I can't thank you both enough. This has just been such a wonderful evening and a delight. I love the book. I'm so excited it's out in the world now for everybody to see. So just thank you all. Everybody have a great night.
Thanks for coming, everyone. Thanks. Thank you. Delightful. See you.